Hey everybody, it's Andy Kushner with The Wedding Biz, and this is another episode of The Next Level, which today is brought to you by PartySlate, the first website designed specifically for event industry professionals. Be sure to check out their site at partyslate.com. And so with The Next Level, I have a guest co-host I'm about to introduce. I'm so excited in a moment. And together we talk about the most recent interview of the week and kind of suss out a few key topics and help translate them into some tips and advice so that you could help bring your own business to the next level. And before I introduce today's illustrious guest co-host, I want to mention last week's interview, which was King Dahl, former executive director of events for MGM Resorts Worldwide, eventually in charge of 1,200 events. King's own signature style was really large and dramatic and stunning. And King has an incredible story about just leaving it all to travel and hang out for 2 years with his wife, and then came back in a very different way, though stronger than ever. And I had Philip Van Nostrand as the guest co-host talking about King because Phil has his own story about how he set up his own life. So it's really fascinating. Hope you all check into last week. So now, today's guest co-host is none other than Lynn Easton. Lynn, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Happy to be back with you again.
Yes. And for anyone out there who somehow does not know the name Lynn Easton, Lynn did 2 interviews on The Wedding Biz. Part 1 was released, we recorded in 2017. God, Lynn, that was a long time ago.
A lifetime ago, right?
Oh, my God. But I re-released it. I don't even know if you know, but I re-released it December 31st of 2018.
Okay.
Yeah. And then part 2 came out January 28th of this year. And I'm going to put all of that in the show notes because you all must listen to both interviews of Lynn. They are amazing. So just a little more about Lynn. She created Easton Destination Events, a luxury destination wedding design and planning company that works worldwide with offices in Charlottesville, Virginia, and Charleston, South Carolina. She is also the creative force and co-founder of Easton Porter Group, a luxury hospitality company with a portfolio of award-winning boutique hotels, vineyards, restaurants, and event venues in North America and Europe. And Lynn is, like Marcy, very popular planner and designer amongst the industry as well. And Lynn, before we talk about this, let me tell everyone about Marcy Blum, also someone that you all should know if by chance you don't. She was named one of the best in the world by Vogue, Stuart Weddings, Harper's Bazaar, and New York Times Magazine. Some of Marcy's high-profile clients include LeBron James and Savannah James, George and Tamika Soros, the Rockefeller family, Kevin Bacon, Kyra Sedgwick, Billy Joel, on and on and on. She's been featured in numerous publications and has appeared in many TV shows, including Oprah, Live with Regis and Kelly, and The Rachel Ray Show. So, Lynn, I would love to know, first of all, I know you and Marcy are really close. How did you all meet? We
met through, we all call that hashtag because of Engage. So I don't know where we were sitting ready to go up on a panel, and, we started to talk, and I absolutely fell in love with her. She's really truly one of my cherished friends, and I have an amazing respect for her. So love Marcy Blum.
Yeah. And don't you spent some time together on fam trips too, right? You've been to some incredible places.
We have. I mean, it's one of the nice things about, these FAM trips, which stands for familiarization trips, which we're lucky enough to get invited on. And I guess really one of the standout ones, we did Morocco for about 10 days, and it was awesome. So we had lots of fun.
Yeah, I heard a lot about that one. That sounded incredible. So, well, in terms of the conversation with Marcy, I mean, obviously there's so much we could both talk about, but to kind of narrow this down to a few topics, one of the first ones that really grabbed my attention because of my own experience with my clients was how we were talking about, obviously you've got to have some number of basic templates, how you run your business, but Marcy was saying you can't sustain without the customization, and really the only thing we have to sell is the hands-on touch. And I was saying to Marcy how it is amazing to me how so many planners out there, and never at the level of like you and Marcy, but a lot of the planners out there have even a timeline that it's just fill in the blank, but it's the same timeline they use from customer to customer. And I don't get that. And Marcy was saying, yeah, you can't do that. How do you feel about that?
I mean, obviously, very much the same. I've been in this business for about 25 years, and we had one occasion where, we did these really long timelines, and I handed out, this 10-page timeline, and people's eyes glassed over, and I realized, gosh, we have to start to make them shorter and shorter and shorter. if you're using a template that basically is canned, you really can't be giving your vendors, and that's really what this is about. I mean, it's nice that the bride knows what her hits are, but really it's about connecting with your vendors so that they make their hits. And that's ultimately what makes a seamless event. So I couldn't agree with Marcy more about the fact that templates are really, I think the templates are there to help these younger planners know what the hits are. Obviously not everybody today is cutting the cake, but you're going to have a first dance. You're hopefully going to have a father-daughter dance. You're going to, let's say, have an entrance into the room. Whatever you're cutting your cake, whatever those things are, then your job as the planner is to understand the flow of your day and the timing of the caterer and specific to the location. So I do think that using a template for an event for a wedding is not appropriate.
Well, yeah, I wonder if a lot of these planners out there that have the same template, and again, I see this, from party to party. I'm wondering, I'm not quite sure if it's a shortcut they're taking, but it seems to me, that again, like Marcy said, all we have to sell is the hands-on touch, the customization. And I know that you're huge into that too, right? And so some families may want dancing in the beginning, some may not. Maybe it's a tent situation, right? Where you have a separate tent for dinner and you're not going to have dancing in between courses, right? I mean, it's like, it all depends on the vision. Exactly. Yeah. And it was interesting when I was listening, and Marcy, that's what's so, I think, wonderful about different planners and what they, I think a lot of planners have a little bit of a style of how they do it. Marcy said, she loves to go right into the dinner and then do dancing afterwards. And we love to do a 20-minute dance set right as guests come in the room. And then we introduce the bride and groom, and then we sit down for dinner. And those are all opportunities, again, to customize. And that's what the planner should be doing. What does the client want and what feels good to them? And we definitely have clients who are like, I definitely don't want to dance first. And then the whole question of dancing during courses is really interesting. We're getting our younger brides are like, I definitely want to dance during dinner. And now we're embracing it. It took us a little while to get on board because it seemed like a little scary, but now we're doing it. And I think a little bit of that is because the emphasis, our clients, I always try to impress the fact that, enjoy this lovely 90-minute meal, and it's going to go by so quickly. But we do have a lot of our clients who are really anxious to dance and are happy to, fit that dancing in between courses. Yeah. And so the point is that there is no formula. There should not, right? There should not be a formula. Exactly. Yeah. Also another point that came up was Marcy was saying how people are more interested, in her opinion now, her experience, than ever before, with the clients really thinking more and more and more about what experience they're bringing to their friends, versus just for them, the family. And, she was also saying that, look, I might have brought it up, but she said wealthy people don't only have wealthy friends and family. And so multiply that by hundreds of people in terms of being able to bring that kind of joy to your guests, especially when it's a destination wedding in particular. But again, that they're really thinking, well, who is coming? What is the demographics? And right. I mean, even though the demographics tend to be all over the place, still it varies from party to party, doesn't it? Right. Absolutely. And Marcy is a master at that. I mean, she did a wedding. We've both done weddings, for example, at the Amman in Montenegro. And, when she did it, she, one night was Bond themed, and she had people climbing off of, rappelling off of rocks and just, she really made the whole thing an experience. And with our client, it was much more subdued. So I think, again, it's really one of her, it's this layer of magic that she, puts, adds to her events, the sense of whimsy and experience that one of her driving forces is to create events that really touch their clients and really have experiences embedded and surprises. And I think she's a master at that. Well, and let's talk about that too, because first of all, I know, both of you, many of the events that you're doing are multi-day, right? Even the weddings are usually, even if it's not a destination wedding, it's a full weekend and, you're doing the whole thing, right? Exactly. Yes, absolutely. They're now 3 days typically. So it's a rehearsal dinner and then a welcome party. And then sometimes we're doing the welcome party and the rehearsal dinner. They go back and forth what clients want, but there is a welcome party, there is a rehearsal dinner, and then there is the wedding, and then often there's the Sunday brunch. So it's really 4 events. Well, and it would make sense to me that a planner is going to handle the entire weekend so that there's a thread that ties throughout, right? And you're looking at the whole experience. It's a combination of separate experiences, but it's one whole event, as a whole. So it seems to me that is going to be, that's really what you all are talking about.
And we're really tired after 4 days.
Oh God, I can't imagine. I think about, with me with the music, and it's like, here I am, complaining sometimes. I have no right, no right at all.
Right.
And then you talk about destination weddings. You're talking potentially, if you're in Italy or somewhere like that 5 days, right? It could be a very long event in terms of the days.
Absolutely. And just for our team, the travel to get there. I mean, we're doing a wedding in Thailand and a wedding in Vietnam this year. And, the travel time to get to these guys is really tough. So yes, it's, I think for both Marcy and I, being in the destination wedding world, those are its challenges. It's just that you're on the road a lot.
Many of our past guests, including Brian Raffanelli, Cece Johnson, Colin Cowie, and Lynn Easton, all use PartySlate to showcase their event work and build their businesses. And if you're not familiar with PartySlate, it's a website that inspires people planning events and connects them with the leading event professionals and venues across the country and the world. This is a really, really great website. You can sign up for a free profile where you can upload unlimited photos and events, or you can explore one of their membership options for even more exposure. And PartySlate has launched in 11 cities so far, including Chicago, Los Angeles, New York, Dallas, and Miami, and they are coming to a city near you soon. Visit PartySlate.com to learn more. Again, you really got to check out PartySlate.com. Well, I want to ask Lynn, this I didn't bring this up in the conversation with Marcy, but I'm curious, going to Thailand, for example, let's say that you're going to a place where you have never been, your team has never been. How do you deal with, 6 days of events in a country you've never been to before, as far as finding the team? I know you fly out a certain amount of people, but how do you deal with that?
Well, I think it's the same, it's the same process you go in. If you've never, often people say, well, they'll interview us for, working in, let's say the first time in, I don't know, the Bahamas, let's say. They say, have you ever worked in the Bahamas? And I say, well, I haven't, but that's what we do. We go into a new venue, a new place, and essentially we create an event that's never been done before because we've never been in that part of the world before. So we think it's actually, in some ways, it's a strength, and the strategy for finding the best vendors is actually easier than you think. We start with, for example, you find that you figure out who the best tent vendor is, and then you go in and then you start to ask, who would they recommend for catering? And then you ask the catering company who is the best decor person. Then you go ask the decor person who's the best tent company, and you thread this back and forth with all of the vendors that are available to you in that area. And essentially the cream rises to the top. And it is, I've almost never had it happen that you have not been able to identify. And they're not always brilliant. I mean, that's sort of the tricky thing about doing destination. I mean, when you're in certain countries, you have limited resources, but we've always felt that we had the best that area had to offer. So that's really how we do it. So it's not, it's honestly not any more complicated to do something. And I mean, there are logistics that are hard when you're, if you're in the Maldives and you're literally 400 miles from the nearest location, which would have anything for you to rent. Those are logistics that are hard, but they're still surmountable, because you can pay to have barges bring them in. Yeah. It just gets expensive.
Oh, I can't imagine and is there a part of the world that you have not yet been that you would love to work in?
Somebody asked me that the other day. I crazily enough said, they said, what would you be your ultimate destination to work? And I actually had my honeymoon in Burma, aka Myanmar. And there is this amazing city of Bagan, which you take a riverboat down, and I had this vision of being able to do a wedding like on the field with all of these amazing temples behind it. And
geez.
Or the other thing, and actually, funnily enough, I've been to there as well in Cappadocia in Turkey, where where they do all those balloons go up. So yes. I mean that. So those, if somebody said, what would be your, or in Machu Picchu, a lot of people, but I've actually been to Machu Picchu when it was closed at night.
Oh.
It was the most amazing thing in the world. God. So I think those are if I could do anything for that, sort of that wonderful wild client, it would be pretty far afield.
Oh, it sounds wonderful. Well, and to continue this conversation with the interview with Marcy, we also talked about how an event should keep unfolding and constantly, surprise the crowd throughout, right? And how do you feel about that? I mean, I know that's something that both of you are really big on.
Absolutely. And I think we now have, there's so much entertainment out there now that wasn't there even 5 years ago. It's amazing. I mean, all of this, these fun dancers and if you can dream it, we can get it now. All these little surprising moments happening. And I would say our clientele is a little less interested in that, to be frank. But I know that Marcy's had, some just absolutely magical moments in hers. One of the dinners she told me about, wedding dinners, I thought it was such a fun concept. She did all lounge seating for the dinner. So not just a little lounge seating.
Wow.
Everyone had a lounge seat. Is this great?
Okay.
And then and you had an assigned lounge.
Huh.
And then they brought you out little tastings of food, as opposed to giving you, your starter and your entree. They basically,
like tapas in a sense.
Yes. But I mean, just sort of layered this experience. What a fun way to dine. That's how everybody wants to eat. And, what a creative way to approach it. And only Marcy Blum would do that.
Wow. Well, and also, she was talking about some, let's call them sub themes. Like, for example, I think she talked about a wedding off the Amalfi Coast where she had a truffle fest with an all white party. And, and I know that these kinds of things are big for you too, right? So it's sort of sub theme in that sense.
Exactly. Yeah. So we did a wedding recently, and the bride and groom did an Austin Powers party.
Oh, come on. That must have been funny.
So much fun.
Yeah.
And just for the welcome party. And it just, it just makes everyone so joyful. And I think we're just lucky enough to, live in a time where we, we're so much less limited about what a wedding means today, and or a wedding or the events around it. And I think that's very exciting that we have a lot more freedom. I mean, listen, weddings 25 years ago, when I started, they were really, truly formulaic. I mean, everybody, this is how you did it. You probably could have been using that template 25 years ago.
Oh.
But it's nice the way that's evolved.
Well, and you mentioned Austin Powers. I mean, having a comic element to it, I would think that some people might be hesitant to do that. But the moment you said it, I thought, what a relief to have something like that.
Exactly. Well, and this was their night before their wedding, so it actually wasn't the wedding. But I mean, it still was so, obviously, as we all know, laughter and that whole, as you said, that whole comedy of it just breaks things down and brings people together.
Yeah, especially in the beginning, right? People who don't know each other, now they can loosen up.
Yeah, I mean, it was just the best. It honestly was just the best.
Well, and Marcy brought up, I thought this was really cool. She mentioned a movie night after brunch on a Sunday of a weekend for the guests that were still staying there, giving them pizza and popcorn and bean bags and watching. I thought this was funny as hell. The Wedding Crashers, watching that.
Yeah, that's great. Absolutely. So fun.
So many possibilities. Yeah, it's like it seems like if you open up, there's so many possibilities here. And, before we wrap up, I want to mention there was something else she talked about that I thought was really interesting. And I could swear I heard Brian Raffinelli talk about this one time too, was thinking about not just, the tables, when there are tables for dinner, of putting people at different tables, but really thinking out with a lot more intention, who is there and who's sitting next to who, to be able to kind of set up these connections for people, not business connections, but rather personal connections with someone who could be really interesting to meet. And do you do that too? I assume at certain parties that happens.
Yeah, I mean, I would say at least half of our weddings are seated, and it is, it's the downside for the bride is that it does happen it's, obviously you have to get your RSVPs in, and then you have to really, so you're now, let's say, a week out, when everybody's coming, and then you have to start on your seating, and it is a little stressful. So I do, I always try to make my brides feel that if they don't want to do it, it's absolutely fine, because it is stressful trying to seat 400 people or 200 people. But it is, I think, I completely agree with Marcy. I think guests really enjoy not having to go sit at the table and who am I going to sit next to? And I think the art of seating is absolutely one of those, that perfect dinner. It's basically you're creating 20 different perfect dinner parties by seating everybody just in this amazing way. And that's what, and that's really hospitality at its finest moment, when you have a table full of people who just can't stop talking to each other. So I think that is awesome.
Well, and I'm also thinking, we talk about creating an experience, which is what this is all about. You've just created, I can't even count how many experiences for these people just sitting at the table, who they get to meet right next to them, to think that out.
And, we love to encourage, although I must say the young people don't always love it, but we love to try to do a little, encourage them to do a little older people, younger people, because that is, and it's only for 90 minutes,
Right.
And it doesn't always work, but it is so fun when you can do it, to mix it up. So I always appreciate what our clients say they're willing and able to do, to see to the place, as we say.
Yeah. Well, that is all we have time for today. I want to thank everyone for listening. And Lynn, thank you so much for taking your time to do this. I know you've got so much going on right now.
Oh, it's my great, great pleasure for my darling friend, Marcy. So nice to talk to you, Andy, and I will talk to you again soon.
Yeah, and let me give everybody, Lynn, first of all, everyone should check out the website, eastonevents.com, and also your social media handle. They're all Easton Events. And again, I'm going to put in the show notes all of this, as well as Lynn's interviews on the wedding biz. And then for Marcy, got to go to marcyblum.com. And also, we'll put all the social media handles for Instagram, Twitter, and Pinterest. It's at Marcy Blum. For Facebook, it's Marcy Blum Associates. But again, we'll put that all in the show notes at theweddingbiz.com. And I just want to also mention that next week's episode is going to be Carrie Goldberg, digital travel and weddings editor at Harper's Bazaar. And that's a real interesting one. Also want to thank again our sponsor, PartySlate. And we will catch you all next week on The Wedding Biz.